Pam O'Reiner for UCEazy. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to our webinar. We're going to be talking about a guide to writing the college essay, which I'm sure the UC applications have opened this as of August 1st, along with the Coalition app and the Common App, and so I'm sure many of you have logged on and set up your accounts. Hopefully you have, and you can pull up many of the supplemental essays, and the personal statements and personal insight questions for UC are also available. So we're going to be covering all of that today. I will be presenting. I'm Pam O'Reiner, and Richard Napora will be joining us for the Q&A and maybe contributing throughout. So welcome. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to VK at this point, who would like to talk to you a little bit also.
Hi everyone, my name is VK. I'm the co-founder of UCEazy. At this point, UCEazy stands for Universities and Colleges Admissions Made Easy. And our vision is primarily to demystify the college admissions process for families everywhere by providing access to top-class experts and the resources. We kind of offer a combination of free and paid solutions. And why did my co-founder and myself started this company is primarily to simplify. It's a highly complex college application process. So we are like most of you, we are also like first generation immigrant parents here. So we had a tough time figuring out this whole process. So the thing is, we kind of even for public university system, it's kind of more complicated process. So we want to really simplify it. So that's how we kind of came up with this UCEazy. And we have like 3 different solutions, right? Like a toolbox. It's free web applications, which helps the kids figure out examples like what is my best code, the GPA calculator, and what colleges can I get in, and the organizer, which has all the soft dates and key dates. It can send reminders, those kind of family of web applications. Then we have free educational events like this one. We do every Sunday from 3 to 4. It's a series of webinars. Experts like Pam and Rick, they come, and from our other panel of experts, they also every week they come and present on key topics, right? And last, the union, which is a great part of our service, that's kind of network of our experts. It's completely done on online media platform where our counselors have gone through rigorous interview process. As a parent myself, I can tell easily 7 out of 10 counselors have been actually rejected because we do have a strong interview panel, and we have our great team of experts. So with that, I will have Pam and Rick continue the session. Pam?
So I'd like to just introduce myself and tell you a little bit about me. I have over 8 years experience in college counseling. I have both my bachelor's and master's from Stony Brook University. And in addition, I have a graduate certificate in college admissions counseling from UCLA. I'm a member of a number of professional organizations, such as HECR, WACAC, and the International ACAC, and just, sorry about that. And I grew up in New York, but I currently reside in the Santa Monica area in Los Angeles. And my favorite thing about college counseling is to help students set goals for themselves and then give them the tools to achieving them. So with that, I'd also like to introduce Rick.
So I'm Rick Napora, and I grew up also in New York, and I had horrible guidance as a kid. I was kind of a bad kid, a delinquent more or less, and my counselor spent maybe 5 minutes with me, and that led to a military career. And I soon found out that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And when I finally figured out what I did want to do, I went to college. I became an English teacher. I then became a counselor because I was so fascinated with that window of opportunity for kids in high school to kind of figure out that this could change the rest of their lives, and it's a great time to do it. And so I've been a counselor almost 20 years and worked with thousands of kids at all levels of high schools, from super, super competitive to very, very impoverished schools. I've taught at San Diego State University in the graduate counseling program for counselors that are training to be counselors. And currently I live in Westlake, Thousand Oaks area, Southern California, with my wife and zoo full of dogs.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a poll up. I'm just trying to move it to the next slide.
Yeah, you can carry on, Pam.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to want to move to the next slide. Hold on one second.
Yep.
I still have a poll up on my screen.
Yeah, probably just move it to the side.
Oops. No, it doesn't want to move.
Yeah.
Can we remove the poll?
Yep, I'm just going to close it. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so what we will learn today is the types of college essays, what part the college essays play in the admission process, tips for crafting winning college essays, and the common mistakes that could be detrimental to your application. Okay, so a common question is, what applications require the college essay? So many of you, as I mentioned in the intro, have already logged on to the common application. And you can see, if you've logged on, that there's a main personal statement for the common application, in addition to many supplemental essays, depending where you're applying. There's also the UC application, which their essay format has changed for this year to personal insight questions. Many of the out-of-state public universities require essays, and also the new coalition application that launched this year has essays also. So those are the places in which you can find the essay. And so a common question is, what part do college admission essays play in the application process? So it's a tool that the admissions committee uses to evaluate your application, in addition to your GPA, your test scores, your extracurricular activities, your letter of recommendations, your interviews, and your school-specific supplements. It's a way of gaining an insight into who you are, your values, your characteristics, and how you can fit into their university. And so with that, I feel that many applicants are going to be applying to the UCs. And so just to give you a little bit of an insight into how the UC questions have changed, this is the first time in almost 10 years that the UC has changed the format of their application. It used to be that there were two essays for a total of 1,000 words that were just broader in spectrum. One was describe the world you come from and how it has shaped your dreams and aspirations. And the other essay was to talk about a quality, talent, or accomplishment that makes you proud and describes the person that you are. Now the questions are much more directed and much more specific. I feel that it will make it easier for applicants to answer these questions because you have more direction. The other was more open-ended and, you know, maybe more creative in how you approach it. Now they really want to know their answer. On the other hand, there's, I think, more work, because it used to be where there was a 1,000-word limit. Now, if you multiply, you have a choice of 4 out of 8 questions. And according to the UC, all of the questions are valued equally. So it doesn't matter which ones you answer. And what I would look at is what you want them to know about yourself, and then pick the questions that correlate to the answers or the information that you wish to share, rather than the other way around, rather than looking at the questions and then finding an answer for them. I think it's more advantageous to reverse the order of it. And so if you multiply 4 times 350, you get 1,400 words, where in the past, the maximum was 1,000 words. So if you were to use the limit, that would be an additional 400 words. So it's actually going to take more time to do it than in the past. And just, a little side note to make sure to proofread, for grammar, spelling, and syntax, because it's my personal feeling that an essay that's poorly executed in grammar and spelling will take away from the message that you're trying to convey. So that's a little bit about, we'll go into it more deeply, but that's just a brief overview of the UC essays. So looking at this next slide, there's a lot of words on this slide. And you can also pull up this information on the UC website. So there's no need to, quickly write all of this down. This information is all available, but this is just sort of meant to give you an overview of the types of questions that the UC is looking at. And so, some of them would be to describe your favorite academic subject and explain how it has influenced you, maybe to talk about your greatest talent or skill, how have you developed it and demonstrated that talent over time. I'll just do one other question. What is the one thing that sets you apart from other candidates applying to the University of California? And that's a question that I particularly like, because I feel that there are many students that are applying to the UC, all with similar grades and test scores. And so this question kind of, gives you the freedom to talk about whatever you want, as opposed to just a talent or a skill, conveying, what sets you apart from everyone else. And it could be a lot of different things. And so these are the UC questions. And again, as I said before, all of them, according to the UC officials, are valued equally, that there's not one that's given more weight than others. On the other hand, we have the common application essay, which this is the main essay. And what you want to remember about this one is that this one is going to be going to all of those schools that you apply to on the Common App. And there are over 600 schools that subscribe to the Common App. So many of the schools that you are going to be looking at are on the Common App. And so just as a little side note, you should log on to the Common App, and if you want to know if the school that you're applying to is a member of the Common App, you would pull it up, and there's a link at the top that says Member Schools. Press on that link and you can see the member schools. Or there's another link that says College Search. You would press on that link that says College Search, and you would type in the school that you're looking for, and then hit the link that says Search, and it will come up if the school that you are searching for is a member. You would then hit the link that says Add, which would add it to your dashboard. But this is, this is just sort of a lesson in how you put those schools on your Common App. But I think it's important to know whether the school you're applying to requires this essay. So getting back to the essays for the Common Application, here as opposed to 4 questions, we have 1 question, and again, this one is 650 words, and really, the question, what they want to find out is pretty much the same as the UC app: who you are, what you bring to the university, your voice, your values, your characteristics, and what makes you the person you are. And so with that, you have a choice of 5 essays. And again, I would use the same approach as I mentioned before on the UC app. I would think about what you would like to talk about and then reverse it and see which prompt it probably fits. So here you have the widest prompt, the one that gives you the most freedom is the first one. Some students have a background or story of being central to their identity, that without telling the story, basically your application would be incomplete. If this sounds like you, please share your story. And another one would be describe a problem you've solved, a problem you'd like to solve, explain its significance to you and the steps you took or could be taken to identify a solution. So with that, I mean, this is a little bit more directed than the first one, but the problem you've solved, it could be hypothetical. It could be even solving, an example would be maybe solving the problem of how social media has taken over our life and maybe has formed probably a disconnect within people or reduced the amount of face-to-face interaction, and maybe how you would like to hypothetically solve that problem. So it doesn't have to be an actual problem. It could be just something that you think is important. So anyway, that's a little bit about the common application. Okay, so I've touched on this before, but I will go back to it because I think it's really important that applicants understand what the purpose is of the college essay. And it gives you a chance to tell admissions who you are beyond your GPA and test scores. Many schools do not offer face-to-face interviews. There are schools that offer alumni interviews, and some schools will offer face-to-face interviews. But basically think of it as an interview in essay format. It's your chance to have your voice heard. So what would you want to say in your interview? This is your place to say it in a written format. And you want to focus on your strengths, your accomplishments, your values and interests. Personally, I would not want to use this space to focus on a failure or a shortfall in my personal life. You want to leave the reader with a good feeling. You want them to know why you would be a good addition to that college. And again, this is also written in a different format than a typical English essay. It should be written in the first person. They want to know about you, which is why I'm always reluctant applicants to put in quotes from other people. This is what I've been told. That, I mean, if it's a quote by maybe someone in your family, maybe a saying that your dad or your grandfather had, something like that would be okay because it's not cliche, but I'd be careful about using quotes. They want to know about you in the first person, and in that respect, it's different possibly from other English essays you've written. So that's the purpose of the college essay. And so there's so many tips that I can offer for writing the college essay, but I've just highlighted here some of the important ones that I've encountered in my years in college counseling, that you want it to be honest and natural and from the heart. And as Rick will maybe chime in later, how admission officials read so many essays that they can tell, what's authentic and what's contrived and what's forced. And so you want it to be really about you and what's important to you. And the topic maybe isn't as important as the story you're trying to tell. And one way that I can say it is by finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. You can take a mundane topic and make it really interesting. If you're talking about a sailing trip, what you learned through sailing. And so I wouldn't shy away from ordinary topics by looking for something that's really, fantastic. You could take something that's just maybe in your day-to-day life and just make it fabulous by your perspective of it. And then, I would sort of think about, a thesis or basically think about what is the point you're trying to make. and then add detail to engage the reader. What you want to do is you want to look for depth rather than breadth. You want to go deep into something rather than touching on many different things. That being said, what you want to do is go back to the prompt after you have a draft and just make sure that you've answered the question, because the reader will always look at it and think, okay, this is the question, what was the answer? So you don't want to get off course where you're not answering the prompt. And also one thing to keep in mind is, and this will not apply to everyone, but if you are applying for a specific program, be it engineering, be it business, be it nursing, you want to be aware of who will be reading your application. I mean, because in many programs, you have additional readers from the specific program that you're applying to read your essay. So you just want to keep this in mind when you're constructing your essay. Another tip is when you're writing it, it's much better not to write it into the text window, to do it on a Word doc or Google Doc, for the reason that many of the text windows time out and then you just lose everything. You could be sitting there working on something for 45 minutes and then all of a sudden it's gone and you have to start from scratch and there's no way to get it back. So that could be very frustrating. The other reason not to type it into a text window is because it's much more difficult to edit it. So my advice is, again, to use one of those two methods to write your essay. And what you also want to keep in the back of your mind is you want to hopefully leave the reader with a good feeling. And the conclusion would be the way to do it. And so those are just a few tips for the moment. Again, there's so many tips. One particular area where I notice a lot of students have trouble is they don't know how to start the essay. How do I start? How do I begin it? Because in a lot of cases, once you have the introduction going, it just sort of snowballs and it's easy to continue. But one particular tip that I can give is there's no saying, there's no rules what order you need to do the essay in. You can start with the middle, and then once you have the body written, go back to the conclusion, to the introduction, and figure out what you want to put in the introduction. So you can reverse the order if you feel more comfortable with doing the body first. If you want to stick with the introduction, there's many different ways of starting it. I think, what you want to do is you want to grab the reader and engage them right from the beginning, because if you think about it, they're reading thousands of essays, and you want to hold their attention and you want to make them read more. And so there's many different tools or ways of doing this. I mean, you can start with an anecdote. You can, many times, some of the well-written essays use a vivid description of a moment in time or of a setting. You can start that way. And so, you have different ways of starting it. And again, there's no rules what order to do it in. Let's see. Another tip that you don't have to use, but that I like to put on the table is I think it's always nice if you can tie the conclusion back in with the beginning and sort of make the essay come full circle. And a lot of times it's sort of a check on whether you've answered the question, and you can relate it back. And also you could, with the conclusion, you can sort of project yourself into the future and bring relevance to the college process. Why is this essay important and how does it relate to college? So the conclusion could be a good place to do that. As I mentioned before, depth outweighs breadth. That means narrow outweighs broad. You could recount a story. And again, with this essay, one of the things you want to do is you want to show rather than tell. So with that, I'm going to move to the next slide. There's other ones up here, so I hope you've had time to read through them. Okay, so I've told you all about the things to do. And so here's what about the things not to do, or the common pitfalls. I would, I would stray away from using overused expressions or cliches. You don't want the essay to read like a resume. They can see that on the application. They can look at your activities list. They can look at your course list of academic courses you've taken. You don't want to regurgitate that information. Basically, you want to tell them about something that's not in the application, that's something that they would have no other way of knowing. If you use humor, it's fine to use humor, just make sure it's appropriate. And one way of doing it also, if you use humor, is to have another person read the essay and see what their take on it is. I think that students should always have another eye looking at their essay. And another key aspect is many students rely on grammar check and spell check. That simply isn't enough, because the grammar check and spell check just does not catch all errors. There are things, it can't, many times, like for instance, the word there and there, if it sees THEIR and THERE, it's not going to know, which one should be used in that place. So the best way to do it is to read the essay aloud and also have someone else read it, and it's another way to catch for errors. But simply that way of checking will not catch everything. Also, another tip is to vary your vocabulary and not start too many sentences with I. And you want to have smooth transitions from one paragraph to the next. You want it to tie in so that it reads smoothly. So what you want to do is you want to look at the last sentence of the paragraph preceding and the first sentence of the next paragraph and see how the flow is. Again, you need to read it aloud in order to see the transition. I would also avoid addressing controversial topics like religion and politics. Those are just two examples, because you don't know who your reader is, and you don't want to say anything that might possibly offend them or be controversial. So I would steer away from controversial topics. There's so many others to choose from. It's just, we don't know who the reader is. We don't know what their beliefs are. And, it's possible that, they may not agree with you, and that may taint their outlook on your application. So we want to take steps to avoid that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in addition, so we know about the UC essays, and we know a little bit about the common application essays. And so what other essays are there? Well, if you're applying to out-of-state schools or private schools, whether you're using the Common App, the Coalition app, the Universal app, whatever app you're using, many of these schools have supplements. And so what are these supplements, and what form can these supplements be in? Well, they can be short essays, they could be longer essays, even of 400 to 500 words. Schools could have multiple supplements or have a single supplement. They could be short answers, they could be quick takes. The most common question is, why us? Why do you want to go to a particular school? What do you intend to study there? And what do you hope to get from us, and how can you contribute to us? So those are the forms and the possibilities for the supplements and where to find them. And so I'm not going to read through these supplements. This is just to give you an example of the type of supplements these are. And these may not be current supplements for this year. These were supplements in the past, which the school may have changed. That's another thing with the supplements. If you've opened the Common App, some of the schools are slower to load their supplements, and they all may not be loaded as of August 1st. And so you need to check and make sure that the supplements are current before you do them. And again, some of them may not even load until September. So, check them and, make sure. And as you can see with these supplements that I've listed, they vary in word count. And so you need to also check the word count on them. You know, don't assume it's 200 words. Don't assume it's 400 words. You know, check all the details. Okay, so we know what applications the supplements are on, but once you get on those applications, how do you locate the supplements? Because the supplements could be in different areas. Now, the UCs do not have supplements. The UCs just have those 4 personal insight questions that I mentioned on a previous slide. So the supplements are on the other applications. So one way to find it is to log on to commonapp.org, get those schools loaded to your dashboard, and once those schools are on your dashboard, you can find them. However, you may need to open up a few different links because sometimes they could be hidden under, it could be in the writing link. There's another link called additional information. We've even had it where LMU last year hit a supplement under the academic link, which, you know, 1 or 2 students, you know, had a lot of trouble finding related to the academic subject that you want to study. So once you get on, make sure to open up all the links. Now, usually a school will not let you hit the submit button until all those questions have been done, but I have seen it where there's been a glitch where a school has actually let a student submit it missing a question, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure to double check or have someone else looking over your shoulder or sharing a screen and double checking to make sure you've completed all aspects of the application. If you are applying to a college that has their own online application, and what you can do is, if a school is not listed on any of these other applications, like the Coalition or, you know, the Common App, I would log on to the school's website, and there will usually be a link that will say apply. Click on that link. That will take you to the school's, that will take you to their application. So once you're on their website, you should see a link that hits apply, that says apply, if they have their own online application, and that will take you to their application where you can see their questions. And again, with specific programs, there could be, once you indicate what your major is, there could be additional supplements that pertain to that major. Like, for instance, I believe it was USC last year that if you were applying to engineering, there were additional supplements. Like, one quirky supplement that I remember from that USC engineering application was, are you a geek or a nerd? Explain why. And so that's not a supplement that you can recycle. So that's why I say that that supplement was particular just for engineering. So if you are applying to a specific program, once you enter that program, you should be able to find out what the additional supplements are. Okay, so that's a little bit about supplements. So again, just like in the Common App or the personal statements, I have some tips for writing the supplemental essays. Again, the supplemental essays can show, you know, demonstrated interest in the school or in the specific program that you are applying to. Remember, you don't want to relist information that's already in your application. You want to tell them things that can't be found in that application. You want to demonstrate through your writing how you've spent time researching or touring the school and indicate how you plan to contribute to their campus. Remember, in this case, to also edit and proofread. That rule holds throughout all essays because, again, I feel it detracts from, you know, the message that you're trying to convey. And just one particular tip that I like to use is I always like to read the mission of the school on their website. You know, you can find the mission by pulling up the school's website, and there should usually be a link at the top that says mission. And, you know, it's really, you know, what the school values and what's important to the school. And, you know, there may be a way to tie it in with your supplement to show that your outlook and your views are in line with the school's goals. And so it's just a little tip. You may or may not want to use that. I found that helpful in the past. Again, schools may even have short take supplements, which are one-word answers. And again, you want to use that to reflect your interests and your passions. So at this point, I've listed some helpful resource books. This is not, obviously there's so many out there. This is just a few of the ones that I've found to be helpful. The Fisk Guide to Colleges I found invaluable, and I know that their most current book usually comes out in August. I was looking up at Amazon last night, and I see it's already out, and that gives you descriptions of maybe about 350 of some of the most looked at colleges, and the point in using this book for the essays is it may be helpful on the why us essay, because it gives you a lot of the most important points about the school. For instance, if it offers free flight, what the city is like, information about specific programs, extracurriculars that they offer. And so it's about maybe a $25 book, but I've found it to be well worth it and invaluable. Another book that I've liked to use in the past is 50 Successful Ivy League Application Essays by Mr. Tanabe. And they have a number of books out. Again, they're up on Amazon, and they actually give you actual essays that, it's just kind of meant to maybe give you an overview, and it may just help your thought process, and they evaluate those essays. I also like to use The Insider's Guide to Colleges by the Yale Daily News. And again, in many ways, that's like the Fisk Guide. It's just another perspective. It gives you information about the colleges that you may be able to use for the Why Us essay. I also like Real College Essays That Work for the same reason, as Mr. Fisk, who also they put out the Fisk Guide. And then just two other tools. I like to have a good dictionary and a pocket thesaurus. The pocket thesaurus, and you can use an online thesaurus. It doesn't have to be an actual physical book. I tend to employ both, and that helps you to vary your vocabulary. And just the last book is the only grammar book you'll ever need. But there are other grammar books out there, and that's if you want to check if something should go in italics, if you're using a semicolon correctly. I've just found it to be a good tool. So I have some final recommendations. I think it's really, really important to start early. I can't emphasize this enough. I mean, you don't want these essays to be rushed. You want it to be well thought out. Again, as I mentioned earlier in this webinar, it's basically an interview in essay format, and you want it to accurately represent yourself. And so by starting early, you have the chance of having an alternate reader. You can revise and edit through numerous times. You need time to research the schools if you're planning on touring. You can mention that in your essays. You could bring up actual experiences that you've had. Let's see what else. Oh, you want to have time to check all the links and make sure you've answered all the supplements. And so I think that by rushing it and starting, towards the end, there's more chance of making errors, detrimental errors, which you don't want to have. And so by starting early, you can avoid many of those pitfalls. Oh, and so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rick.
Yeah, so Pam's brought up a whole bunch of really interesting points. And so one of the things that I recommend my kids do is sometimes if you share stuff with your parents might think you're the best dancer in the world, or they might think that you're the smartest kid in the world when you might not be. So some kids are terrified of sharing their essays with their parents. So my recommendation is to share your essay with your best friend. Don't tell them what you wrote about, and see if they can figure out which prompt it was you were trying to write about. And if your friends can figure out what question you were trying to answer, that means you're a little probably closer to the target. And they should be able to tell you honestly whether or not like that's a representation of who you are. Because much like an interview, it's almost like a power date. You're leaving somebody with an impression of the person that you want them to know that you are. Because otherwise the essay, you're a bunch of stuff on an application that has nothing human really about it other than numbers and test scores and classes you've taken. So that's your one shot, your like opportunity to leave somebody who's never met you, who never may meet you, with an impression of the person that you are. Also, a lot of my kids will complain about, oh, there's so many supplements and so many essays, but they're really not burdens, they're opportunities. So if Stanford asks you what you did last summer, then take that opportunity. And as Pam mentioned, some of them are very recyclable and some of them are better off starting from scratch. So if you're filling out like an engineering supplement, you know, for MIT or something, you want to make sure that it's truly representative of you as a person. The other thing, a common mistake kids make is trying to butter up the colleges. Remember, the college reps are these smart people that have done this a zillion times. Stanford gets over 40,000 applicants, it admits about 2,000, so they've heard this all before. So you never want to tell them how great they are. They already know that. They want to know what you can offer them. So it's more about, you know, painting the best picture of yourself, and hopefully someone on the other end, when they read this, will be able to put the pieces together and think, that's a kid that I would actually love to have at my campus.
Yeah, it's as rightly pointed out, Rick. I know this is a complicated process, right? And especially the main reason for us to start this is actually, you know, it's a budget constraint, especially in California. The counselors do a great job in schools, but you know, you cannot have them provide individual and personalized attention, right, to every kid. So that's the reason why the worst what thing can happen is, as a parent and for family, it's a kind of anxiety and the friction between the parents and the kid, right? And as really when you get into the end of the cycle, it's really the atmosphere at home is completely changes. Also, the worst thing what could happen as a kid is we don't want our kid to short sell themselves, right? Especially that's why as kind of Pam and Rick emphasizing, it is very important to write in a way that's kind of really interesting and brings out as a character who you are as an individual, and that should be appealing to the reader, right? So you should really make use of our great counselors and experts. They can really guide you in the entire process.
Yeah, each counselor will have his or her own particular style. Like some of the things that I'll do when I read an essay with my kids is I never tell them what they should write or, you know, what topic would be best for them. But what I will do is I'll question like what they've written, and I'll say, you said that you want to be an engineer. So do you think what you've written really demonstrates to the reader that that's true? And does it coincide with your passions, you know, that you've had 4 years in high school to accomplish? Like, so is this really the right essay? So I'll try and point out things as sort of an objective person on the outside, pretending as if I never met the student, to get them thinking about, really, is this what they wanted to write? And so sometimes kids just need an extra nudge, and Pam can talk about the things that she does, you know, individually with kids to get them over that hump.
Yep.
Yeah. I just, one of the things I do, I ask them, you know, for, you know, valuable experiences that they've had, you know, and you know, I think one useful tool is while you're in high school to keep a journal. And if you keep a journal, you can reflect back on those experiences. So that's one possibility for as a tool that you can use.
And some of my kids also, if you put them down in their room and say, go write an essay, then they're just, they don't know what to do. And so some of my kids will actually take their phone because they can record on it. And if they're walking the dog and an idea comes to mind and they just start stream of consciousness thinking like, oh yeah, I could talk about the time that I went to the beach and I almost drowned. And, you know, so a lot of my kids it'll come from odd things. They might be, so parents, if you're thinking you could like lock them in their room and say, produce an amazing essay and don't come out till you're finished. That might not work for some kids. Some kids might need to be doing what they love to be doing, and it'll just come to them, and it'll be something they can journalize, as Pam had mentioned, or it could be something that they could tape record and then do transcribing it later.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Any burning audience questions that we could field? You have us as a captive audience.
Feel free to fire up more questions. So do you have any other questions you want to share? Usually what kind of questions your students ask or our clients ask, Vic?
Sure. I mean, ordinarily, the one that drives counselors crazy is the student will come up and say, what do you think I should write about? And I tell them it doesn't matter what I think you should write about. It matters when you read this question or this prompt, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And so a lot of times it's trying to get them over that mental hump of like, you're being asked a question, so how would you answer it? Like in your natural, habitat, not like what you think we want to hear, because a lot of kids are very expert about telling adults what they think we want to hear. And so, that's one thing I tell them to do is pay close attention to the instructions. The other is all kids that apply to a Common App school or the coalition are going to have a letter of recommendation from their high school counselor as a minimum, and they're going to have 1, 2, maybe even more letters of rec from the teacher. So it's great if you would be willing to give these people that will be writing you recommendations a copy of what you've written, your essays or your writing prompts, so that number one, they don't repeat things that don't need to be repeated. And number two, they might know things about you that over the 4 years of getting to know you that they've never known about you. It's great ways for us to expand on our letters of recommendation that we write on your behalf.
Oh, great. Yeah, this is a great point.
I have another, I have a useful tool once you know a subject. And as I mentioned, it could be just an ordinary aspect of your everyday life. If you're having trouble getting going, one way to do it is to sort of write an outline of bullet points of the thoughts that you would like to convey. And once you have that outline written, it will be a lot easier to take those points and turn it into a story. So, because sometimes it's a writer's block of I don't really, know what to write about, but it sort of breaks it down into manageable steps. So that's another method.
And remember at the end, having taught English, I had to divorce myself from, grading kids' essays when, they brought them to me as a counselor. I had to step outside of the 5-paragraph essay kind of mindset, and I had to get into the, okay, so this is my kid's best foot forward, and, are they answering the question? So it's a different kind of essay. And so at the end of the day, if there's any students out there, what's most important is if you're comfortable with it. It doesn't matter what your English teacher thinks or what I think or what, your best friend thinks. At the end of the day, it's like when you push the submit button, could you sleep at night thinking that you put your best foot forward and there was nothing you would have changed about it? And so that's really the litmus test for kids in terms of, did I write the right thing? Did you write the right thing to you? I mean, that's who matters most is our students.
So audience, may I request you to fill up the feedback form, please? So Pam, I think there were a couple of more slides.
Okay, yeah, I just have the poll up, which I need to reduce, or it's won't letting, I can't X out of it.
Okay.
Click and drag it or no?
No, probably you can just use your keyboard arrows to just.
No, it's just, it won't let me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only thing is the poll is blocking my screen. I know you reduced it before. Are you able to just manually X out of it?
Yeah, can do that. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the recommended next steps? Well, you can schedule 1 hour of consultation, and if you do it by midnight tomorrow, you will get an extra 30 minutes. The way to do it is to visit union.uceeazy.com and select initial consultation, and I'd recommend doing it by midnight tomorrow. If you're unsure, you can schedule a free 30-minute Get Acquainted session. You would, again, do that by visiting union.uceeazy.com and select Getting Acquainted. Or you could purchase a block of hours based upon your individual students' grades and needs. Here, what we recommend as blocks is if you're in the 8th or 9th grade, we would recommend 3 hours for the 8th grade, which we would cover core selection, extracurriculars, summers, careers, and majors. If you're in the 9th grade, we would recommend initially purchasing 5 hours, and we would cover the same topics, well, actually, and include careers and majors in that one. And remember, with these initial blocks, you can always add on to them and renew them. If you're in the 10th grade, we would recommend a purchase of 10 recommended hours, which we would cover course selection, extracurriculars, summer activities, careers and majors, standardized testing, and a first draft of the college list and financial aid. And you could repurchase more hours as needed. For 11th grade, we would recommend a purchase of 20 hours. Now, many students will need more than 20 hours to take them through 12th grade and the college process. Some may not, but if you need more, they're renewable and you can purchase, more as needed. So that would be a comprehensive plan for the applications for summer planning, for the essays, for majors, for college lists, for financial aid, resume, and recommendation letters. And it may be enough for a lot of students, but if you have a very long college list, that may not be enough time. So it depends on your individual needs, but 20 hours would be a great way of starting.
Yeah, and again, as I mentioned earlier, like the UCEazy, and with our team of experts, we do a lot of giving back to the community. But at the same time, you do need to generate some kind of funding source. So that's the reason why I see this. But when you are looking at in a position to spend like 150 to 200K for your kid in college, these 10, 20 hours or 40 hours will make a huge difference in kid's life, and especially takes the anxiety and stress out of the kid as well as the parent. And again, it's our top class experts. So we would strongly encourage you to at least try out the free session, and then you can make up your mind, is it worth doing it or not?
Oops. Also, if we have a feedback form, we would welcome your feedback and any information that you can give us from this webinar today. We're delighted that you were able to join us, and hopefully you were able to take away some valuable information from this webinar that will make your college application season just easier, less stressful, and take some of the confusion out of it. Please follow us. We have more webinars on our calendar. You can register through that link, and we hope that you will join us in the future for further webinars. And again, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Feel free to contact us for further information at info@uceeazy.com. And we're just happy to help you along in this college process. We know it could be daunting, but we're here to make the process easy, successful, and help you every step along the way. Rick?
Yeah, and I look forward to working with you as Pam does, and so I always welcome the 30-minute session just to see if it's a good fit, because I think, like anything, the person that's going to be spending time with you and your valuable time, it has to be a good fit. And so I encourage anybody who's interested in even testing it out to give us a shot.
Great. It looks like it's question. Will you be posting these deck of slides? Yes, the whole recording is going to be available. So it's on uceeazy.com/events, and there you'll see the past events, and you'll see all the recordings. Right? So thanks, Pam and Rick. It was a great presentation, and wish everyone have a rest of the Sunday great evening and a great week. So see you in the next week session.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope to see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.